Well, I'm back again, and now on to ranking Season 4 of The Simpsons. So, here we go again. Starts the season on a high note, with lots of memorable funny scenes, including Bart and Lisa trying to get the report cards changed, Milhouse's question for Mr. Black, Krusty dismissing the dangerous objects with his name on them, Barney blowing his Krusty disguise, and how Lisa senses the real Krusty, and overall makes for a really good start to the season. Both plotlines in this episode manage to be hilarious and go hand in hand. The plotline about Maggie trying to get her and the other baby's dummies back at the daycare, a la The Great Escape, is hilarious, but the main plot point about Marge is even better. I think one of my favourite parts of the episode is that while Homer does seem indifferent to Marge acting in the play, he not only pays attention to it when seeing it, but also manages to grasp how dark and depressing the story is, even with the upbeat songs of the musical adaptation, which are fantastic songs by the way. A frequently funny episode, with the standout moments being Homer making moon waffles, his reaction to finding a penny under the couch, and his flashback of playing in the beer rain, and the entire scene in which Ned tries to save him from the fire. It also has a nice ending message about how different religions can come together to help each other. Great episode. Both hilarious and emotionally gripping, with Homer's devotion to make Lisa feel better being admirable, in addition to having various hilarious scenes, including the Disney lawsuit, Barney crushing the Duff Blimp, and the way Lisa is stripped of her Little Miss Springfield crown at the end.
In the area under "Do not write in this space," he wrote...
Great episode. Yep, this Treehouse of Horror improves on the last two, with all the segments being hilarious. Clown Without Pity features many iconic moments, such as Homer buying the Krusty doll, Grandpa's correct but dramatic statement about the doll being evil, Patty's response to seeing Homer naked, and most especially, the twist ending. King Homer manages to be a frequently funny parody of King Kong, even for someone who hasn't seen the film, with some of the best jokes including Smithers' comment about Marge joining the crew, Burns getting high on gas, and the scene with Shirley Temple. Dial Z for Zombies features many great moments, with the best including Groundskeeper Willie only briefly reacting with horror to the zombies, Homer being rejected by the zombies due to them seeking brains, and him taking the opportunity to shoot Ned, not realising he was a zombie. 3 great segments combined into a great episode. This is a great episode that showcases Bart and Homer's relationship, and a heartwarming message to it. It also manages to have a lot of hilarious moments, particularly the Star Trek parody, Bart messing around with Grandpa's teeth, Homer pushing in front for the ice cream truck, and his conversation with Bart afterwards, the Itchy and Scratchy World War II cartoon, Maggie driving Homer's car, and Wiggum's casual reaction to it, the man falling down the bridge as it opens, and the opening scene of the Itchy and Scratchy movie, and how much Itchy goes through just to run over Scratchy. I watched this episode several times as a kid, and I used to think it was interesting how the film featured skits of Itchy killing Scratchy that couldn't be shown on TV, which I thought was symbolic of how Bart, and the audience, never get to see any of the movie other than the opening scene. I don't know if this was intentional on the writer's part, but it interested me nonetheless. While Mr. Burns falling in love with Marge in this episode is strange, given that they've met several times before, the episode is nonetheless home to good jokes, with Smithers' fantasy about Mr. Burns being the standout joke. I also like Homer standing up for Marge at the end. Good episode. The 2 plotlines of this episode, Bart falling in love with Laura, and Homer eating at the seafood restaurant, manage to go hand in hand, with both having funny moments throughout. Particularly Bart admitting he fell on his bottom, Homer remembering how he learned about sex, the reference to the seemingly never-ending story, the bags of shrimp actually being letters in another trial, and Bart's prank calls to Moe, and Moe's reaction to Bart giving his address. I just hope Moe eventually finds Amanda hug and kiss, provided his standards aren't too high. While not one of the funniest episodes, the episode is nonetheless home to good moments, particularly Homer pretending Moe's is a pornography store, Homer saying he'd never do another stupid thing, the terrible Mr. Plow advert, and Adam West's cameo. I also like how it further explores the friendship between Homer and Barney, and gives both of them good character arcs. Not one of the best episodes of the season, but a good one nonetheless. This episode is home to funny moments, particularly Bart flushing Homer's wallet down the toilet, though it's not frequently hilarious like other episodes. The ending is very poignant, however, and I like how the episode explores the first words of all the Simpsons children. A darkly hilarious episode, which is home to many great moments, particularly the bad cop segment, Homer's initial indifference to his heart, Mr. Burns inadvertently killing him, and one of Dr. Nick's failed patients. Well, at least in the case of Homer's heart surgery, Dr. Nick pulled a Homer. Though not widely praised among the cast and crew of the show, Marge vs. the Monroe managed to be a really funny, intelligent episode. While I did previously say that I've never seen The Simpsons as that realistic in its style of comedy, there is definitely some sense of realism to it. Yet, I don't think this episode quite crosses the line in terms of silliness. Except maybe Leonard Nimoy's exit at the end. The episode features a number of hilarious moments, including the Flintstones themed opening, the popcorn rising when a truck falls through a hole, Homer believing Batman will help him, etc. The episode also has that amount of comedic suspense in the Monroe not being able to stop, and guest star Leonard Nimoy's overly dramatic response to the events happening, including the solar eclipse. Plus, who can forget the Monroe song? Mono, don't! This episode has a variety of hilarious moments, especially concerning Homer eating the spoiled sandwich, and Bart and Lisa's antics at Duff Gardens, with Lisa's hallucination, like Dumbo, having creative visuals, but also, unlike Dumbo, actually being relevant to the plot, funny, and not overlong. It also manages to give Selma a compelling arc of wanting a child to avoid dying alone, but eventually seeing the difficulty of it, and instead raising Jub Jub. With this said, the Duff Beer For Me song was stuck in my head after I watched the episode, and I think it's gonna get stuck back in my head as I'm talking about it. Oh shit. Duff beer for me, Duff beer for you, I'll have a Duff, you have one too. Please forgive my terrible singing. The most hilarious part of this episode is the fight between Homer and Tom at the end, especially Homer's hatred of antiques, and when he falls on the fire hydrant at the end. But, as to not undermine how great the episode is, it manages to show the complicated relationship between Homer and Bart, which manages to have an emotionally gripping outcome, even if somewhat predictable. I Love Lisa manages to be both a very funny and poignant episode. It's great to see an episode about Ralph, and how he struggles to comprehend Lisa not liking him, and when his heart is broken, he vents this frustration into a compelling portrayal of George Washington. It shows a different side to Ralph, and how, despite being the dumbest character on the show, there is talent within him. And his platonic reconciliation with Lisa at the end is very heartwarming. It also, as you'd expect from classic Simpsons, manages to have a lot of hilarious moments, including Homer forgetting Valentine's Day and his scene with Apu, Skinner's Vietnam flashback, Krusty's anniversary special, Homer getting Ralph to clean the roof, Wiggum revealing how he got tickets, and the presidential play. A great episode from a great season. This episode does have a lot of really good moments, including Homer trying to hide going to the Duff Brewery, and trying to slam the door on Barney until he agrees to let him drive, Lisa's hamster project, and Homer trying to avoid thinking about beer. And the ending of Homer continuing to avoid drinking to go on a bicycle ride with Marge is very heartwarming. With that said, the side plot about Bart destroying Lisa's tomato feels too mean-spirited, and it rubs me the wrong way to see Bart win in the end. Yeah, Lisa turned Bart into an experiment, but he kind of deserved it. In spite of this, Duffless is a really good episode overall. I've always loved this episode. While I previously named it my third favourite Simpsons episode, upon rewatch, this may end up being my favourite of the entire series. There's not a single joke in this episode I didn't think was fantastic. From the McBain opening to the ending with the laughing gas, there's never a dull moment, and it's hard to single out particular jokes or moments as a result. As can be said for many classic Simpsons references, the references to The Godfather Part 2, Yellow Submarine, and Batman are all hilarious. And they work in the context of the story if you're not familiar with the reference. And the episode has an ending which manages to be both funny and touching. Burns causing a power outage, but the workers not losing hope. And with Burns' hilarious Grinch-like observation, it makes it an even funnier situation. A frequently hilarious, and, when it wants to be, touching episode, and one of, if not the best in the series. The first half of the episode has many funny moments, primarily in Homer and Bart trying to prank each other on April Fool's Day. The second half does overuse clips slightly, but their incorporation is decent overall. Both plotlines in this episode have a lot of really funny moments. The standouts for each being Homer's revelation to Marge that he never graduated, and Bart and Lisa's rock paper scissors game. I also think the minute-long segment with Ned Flanders at the end is funny, even if it is a shame they never made more, ironically for the opposite reason the segment was created. I can definitely name some episodes that could have used them. Another Simpsons clip show. Another really good episode. I like how Lisa's hatred of Whacking Day and Bart's interest in learning end up going hand in hand to save the snakes. I especially love how the setup of Skinner trying to lock Bart and the bullies in the basement, and forgetting about the bullies, leads to him really trying to get them the mountain bikes, only for him and Willie to drive past the school. Honestly, my favourite part of the episode. While the stuff with Marge in prison feels slightly rushed, the episode is nonetheless home to a lot of really funny moments. The standouts being the stuff with the juice loosener, as well as Lionel Hutz trying to remove his tie to make Apu think he could really forget something, and be wrong about Marge. Another really good episode overall. Krusty Gets Cancelled is both very funny and emotionally gripping. Krusty trying to stay on the air has a lot of great moments, but the highlight is when he airs Worker and Parasite, which he doesn't even watch before airing. And Dan Castellaneta's absolutely perfect delivery of,
"What the hell was that?"
absolutely phenomenal. But Krusty's comeback special also manages to be both quite emotionally gripping and funny. And while Julie Kavner and Harry Shearer objected to the celebrity guest appearances, with Kavner not even appearing in the episode, I think they worked quite well here. Much better than they do in a lot of modern Simpsons episodes. The Simpsons have struck gold again, and even more so than the previous seasons. At this point, if Season 5 is even slightly weaker, don't want to say worse because that implies it'll be bad, it could be a sign of decline. But hopefully, and most likely, that won't be the case.